Hey, friends, welcome to another episode of the Well Done Women podcast. So, this is starting off our Crazy Called series. So, the episodes before this has been all about business and leadership and getting clarity in your calling. But the series that are following, the ones that we're in right now and the ones we're kicking off today, are going to be all about whenever the Lord calls us to do the crazy, the illogical, the irresponsible, the thing that maybe we don't even want to do. And I am so excited to be doing this episode with my friend Carol Roper. I met her about a year ago at a retreat. She joined my mastermind. Now she's a coaching client, and we've just become real close friends over the last
Yes.
year or so. Carol is incredible. And she is not only a wife and a mother and a grandmother, but she is a blogger. She's a writer. She's a speaker. She's a podcaster. And what I like to call her is she is the expert interviewer. If you go listen to her podcast, Building Strong Homes, like I listen sometimes to your podcast, Carol, just to get tips on how to interview. So I'm not going to lie, I'm a little bit nervous to interview you because I feel like I'm interviewing the goat of interviewing.
That is
Uh,
crazy.
and so welcome, Carol. Thank you for joining us today on the Little Women podcast. Would you mind just catching us up on who you are and where God has you right now on assignment in your life right now?
Okay, well, I'm glad to know I'm starting off the crazy series, so didn't know that.
A crazy series, Carol
Yeah,
Roper.
the crazy series. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I'm a podcaster. I drew house plans for 36 years before God called me to give that up and step
Mm,
into the calling that He has for me right now, which is the podcasting and ministry that goes with that. I have been married we just celebrated our 40th wedding anniversary. And like you said, I have two amazing adult kids who are married to amazing people, and I have four beautiful grandchildren who call me Coco.
oh,
And I did not make up that name. My grandson did. So,
I love that. Those are the best names when they choose your name.
yeah, I don't want
Mhm.
somebody to think I'm just that bougie or anything. So,
Oh.
but yeah, so God just has me walking through this, and I have kind of uh, right around the time I met you, Brittany, because it was April of last year. I was
Mhm.
sort of going through a crisis of, I've been podcasting. Well, in December it'll be 5 years I've been doing this podcast, and it's hard slogging
Mhm.
by yourself,
Mhm.
day in and day out, and you're just putting things out on the internet, and you have no idea if anybody is getting anything. Do they even care? And then when your
Mhm.
numbers aren't that great and you've put your heart into something, you just really get discouraged. It's so easy to fall into that. And so I'd gone to this retreat. I wasn't sure why I had gone to that retreat, except for that I knew the host, Kara, and I wanted to meet her. That was a
Mhm.
big reason I wanted to go. But I met you at this retreat, and I think that was another reason that God had me
Mhm.
go. And he kind of, I remember asking you this question because we were doing like I guess, sort of a Q&A session
Mhm.
with you and the other speakers there.
Mhm.
And I was just frustrated. I was just really kind of maybe almost angry at God at the time because I'm like, I don't see what you're doing and why I'm doing this.
Mhm.
And I know how to draw house plans, God. I've done it for 36 years. I don't know how to write well without like working so hard at it and podcasting and marketing. I have no idea. I'm just dumb when it comes to that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. But I love architecture. And so you had said, I hope it's okay if I share this, but you said during this Q&A session, you were like, I promise, whatever passion God has put in you, God will use it in your ministry. And I was just like mad at the time. Like not at you, but just like mad at God. And so I just raised my hand and I was like, okay, what about architecture? How can God use architecture in my ministry? And you look so stunned by the way I asked that question. And you're like, you were kind of like stunned there for a minute. And you're like, let me get back with you on that one. Because the other ladies, they were just like, had all these things. But I think architecture was like, oh, wait, you're coming from left field here. This is like
Mhm.
a totally different thing. But we kept talking and working with each other. And, I had years ago when I first started in 2012, when I felt God calling me to write, I went to a writer's conference and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what my purpose is in this. And so I sat down. You can make appointments so anybody listening who is thinking about writing, you
Mhm.
must go to a writer's conference. It is the most fantastic. A Christian writers conference
Mhm.
especially is the most fantastic experience, but you get to have these appointments and you get to eat lunch and dinner with these people that you would never have access to
Mhm.
otherwise. And so one of the marketing guys there, I was sharing with him, my heart for women's ministry, because I have been doing that for 30 years now. And then my love for architecture and all of that. And he's like, oh my gosh, Carol, wow, this is like such a automatic dovetail. Like this just all goes together, And he helped me come up
Mhm.
with the building strong homes. And so I was like, oh, okay, I didn't really see the real point in that. Like, all right, if you say that's how it works together. But since I've started working with you, Brittany, you are just like, because I have worked on that branding,
Mhm.
still unsure, like, God, am I supposed to leave architecture behind? Because you did call me away from drawing house plans because I couldn't do both. It was too much. I made money drawing house plans. I don't make money podcasting, but Brittany's going to help me figure out how to
Yet.
make money
Yet.
podcasting. I'm convinced. So,
Mhm.
anyway, you have helped me to see that. I mean, you looked at all my stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, Carol, your branding is like so on point. It's like you, everything.
Mhm.
And every time I meet with you, you just encourage me so much. And I appreciate that. And,
Mhm.
I was like, oh, I don't know if I should do this mastermind, and I never gotten on a plane by myself. I haven't flown that much anyway in my life until you asked the mastermind group to come to Texas. And I was terrified. But I
Mhm.
did it. I was
Mhm.
59 years old and I got on a plane by myself with my knees shaking and I went scared to death, but so, so glad that I did it. So, anyway, I don't know if that's all you want me to share about that, but
Well, okay, I wanna kinda go a little off script here because you just said something that, um, I think has always made me take a step back and just in awe of you, is that you started your podcast 5 years ago. And so you were, if I can do math right, you were about 54 years old, correct?
well, 55,
55. Okay.
55, because it
Math
was
is
the
hard.
end of the year.
Math
Yeah.
is hard for me. So 50,
I know. Me
50,
too. Me too.
50. So you started your podcast at 55 years old. Can you walk me through that? Because I feel like a lot of women are listening right now and they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they feel the Lord calling them to do something, but they might feel like, Lord, I'm 50 years old. I'm 55 years old. I should be looking to retire. I should be looking to hang this thing up and wash my hands and lay back and find a mimosa and a lounge chair somewhere. You know, can you tell me like what was it like to be building home or designing homes, building homes and designing homes for almost 40 years, doing women's ministry for almost 40 years, and then the Lord say, you're going to start a podcast at 55 years old when your friends might be retiring. What would what was going on through your
Well,
heart and mind in that season? Because I know, I will say this, I felt when I started my podcast, I felt like I was behind because I saw all these other
mhm,
18, 19, 21 year olds starting podcasts. And I'm like, well, man, I feel like I feel, I feel behind. I feel like I'm too old for this. I feel like, and again, I know that that's the enemy spitting lies.
right, it
But
is.
can you kind of tell us about like where were you at in that season? And was it easy to be like, okay, I'll stop doing house plans and now I'll just pick up a podcast and
Oh,
start telling people about Jesus?
okay. So can I go all the way back to when I started
Yeah.
writing?
Okay.
Okay. So my daughter in 2012, well, actually this started in 2011. My daughter was about to graduate high school. I have a younger son, but my daughter needed me a lot when she was home, but she was going away to college and I started losing my identity. you know,
Mm,
I was I was really struggling a lot because we're very close and I didn't know what was I going to do with my life. I was doing women's ministry and things at the time,
mhm,
but I felt like I don't know, I was on this is terrible to admit, but I was almost jealous of my daughter that she was gonna be
mm,
stepping into this, whole new world, and I went to a technical college, but I never moved out of the house, that kind of stuff.
yeah.
And so anyway, I had felt God calling me to write, and I had had lunch one day with a friend, and she was like, we weren't even talking about this, and she's like, "Carol, you need to write a book," which, that was in 2012. I still have not written that book, but I'm working on it.
You're working on it.
And I was like, I don't know how to do that." And she's like, "Oh, remember that lady who came to our church and she spoke? And she has like a writers group." I don't remember anything about that. And so she's like, "Message her on Facebook and ask her about it." So I did. So I started, she answered me the next day, I mean, that same day, and said, "Oh, it's just in the next town over." And I started going to that. And I went to that from 2012 until 2019. No, yeah, no, 2020. And those people, let me just tell you, most of the people in those writers' critique groups are older. I
Mm,
was one of the youngest ones in that group.
mm,
And that encouraged me. And they had a lot of experience and they were so kind to me. They were so kind to me.
mm.
I was a terrible writer, but they were so kind and they taught me so much. And then when I went to the writers' conference, that was like I went to this, I don't know, probably, I don't know, February or March when I went to the first writing thing, and then of 2012, and then that spring in May was when I went to my first ride. Like, I was terrified. I was scared out of my mind to go to this thing by myself. But
Mhm,
I went, and I found the people there so genuine and so helpful, and they just built me up. It
mhm,
wasn't like, "You're stupid," or, "You're too old," or
mhm,
whatever. So, anyway, I started a blog, and my blog won finally, like, it won 3rd place at one point. My devotions won some awards, and then, my blog won 1st place, and I was like, "Wow, well, here we go." That was in 2016, and so then my daughter had gotten engaged, and he broke it off, after we
mm,
had paid all this money and broke my daughter's heart into a million pieces, and I had to be there because she had graduated college at this point, and I had to be there for her, and so I quit really
mm,
blogging. And there's a whole long story, and I won't go into that unless you ask me about it. But we got through all of that, and then in 2019, I had gone to a retreat with some writer friends, and we all, 4 of us, came back, and we were on fire. We were going to start a speakers ministry. We had never been I'm like, what? We are crazy. What are we doing? But we started meeting and planning, and oh my gosh, that was in August of 2019. It blew up. Like, it just blew up in the worst way possible. And I did not understand. I'm like, "God, I thought this was what you wanted us to
mm,
do. We were excited about it." And so, right during that time that we were planning all of this, I had picked back up the book by Jenny Allen, the Anything book. And I don't know if
mm.
you're listeners are familiar with that, but it was the first book she had ever written. And I had
Mhm.
started reading it probably a couple years ago, but it was a hard book to read.
Mm.
And I put it down because I'm like, God, I'm not ready for this. But while we were going through this planning, I said, God, I read the book and I got on my face and I said, God, I'm ready. I'm ready to give you anything, everything, because
Mm.
I want I want to glorify you with my life, and I want what
Mhm.
purpose you have for me. I want to fulfill that. I don't want to get to the end of my life wishing that I had, you know, stepped into whatever it is he wanted me to do. And so after all that blew up, one of the friends that was in this little group of ours, she's like, Carol, you need to start a podcast because that was something I had talked about all along anyway. And I'm like, you know what? Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Well, 2 weeks after I had been on my face and given God everything, done my anything prayer, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
And I was so angry at
Mhm.
God because I was 54 at the time. I was so angry at God. And I'm like, here I give you everything, and you give me breast cancer in return.
Mm.
Well, so I kind of like didn't talk to God for a while. I was just, I was upset. And I, for anybody who is diagnosed with breast cancer, which 1 in 4 women are diagnosed with breast cancer, I mean, it's very common. You don't know for a while what your future. You don't know if you're going to have chemo.
Mhm.
Like they have to do all these tests and all this, and so I
Mhm.
didn't know what my future was going to be. But it ended up that I had stage 1A. It was amazing. The surgeon was amazed the radiologist even found it because it was that small. So I had to have 2 lumpectomies because they didn't, even though it's so small, they didn't get it first time. But then I finished that surgery. Was the second one was November 13th of 2019, and then in the 1st of January of 2020, I started my 20 rounds of radiation. And I'm embarrassed when I look back now because I had such an easy, you
Mhm.
know, so many women go through so many hard things with breast cancer, but it was like God had to test me,
Mhm.
and help me to.
Mhm.
That's how we grow through our suffering, and we don't like it one bit, but that's where
Mhm.
we grow. And so, anyway, after January 30th, 2020, I had my last radiation treatment, and I'm like, okay, I need to start thinking about this podcast thing. But I had like I quit everything.
Mhm.
And so um, then COVID hit March 13th of 2020. And I'm like, oh gosh, I was just starting to get back into the routine. And after
Mhm.
sitting around for a while doing nothing, I'm like, well, gosh, what better thing could I do now than start a podcast, learn how to do a podcast. I knew nothing. I'm terrible with technology. And so I found a lady who had a course. I found 2 ladies and they helped me figure out how to do all that. And so I got it all together. And the thing that I guess I didn't, at that time, I didn't look at my age.
Mm.
What I was looking at was the stories of the people around me. That's where my passion was because,
Mm.
there was a couple in our Sunday school class whose husband was this alcoholic for years and years and years. And God, oh my gosh, their testimony was just amazing how God literally just rescued him, rescued their marriage, rescued their family to the point where he played Jesus in the judgment house, every year. Like he grew his hair out long and everybody loved this man. It's like, how could he have lived that sort of life? So I wanted to give encouragement to
Mhm.
people out there that, maybe they were married to an alcoholic and they
Mhm.
wanted to see, hey, is this ever going to change? Is there hope for my marriage? Or, all kind of different stories of people that I wanted to interview. So I learned how to podcast. I interviewed all these people. I had about 5 or 6 interviews already done. I learned how to edit, all of that. And then I set it's hard to set a date, but I was
Mhm.
like, okay, I don't even know why I set this date. I'm like, I guess I just wanted to do it before the end of the year, but I said December 1st, 2020. That's when my podcast is going to go out. And I did. Like it started, everything was rolling. I had gotten all those episodes finished, edited, ready to publish. And my dad got COVID and died on December the 10th
Mm,
of 2020. And I wanted to just talk about mad at God. I mean, I was really mad then because there's no coming back from that, you
right.
know? And so I was going to give it up, even though I had, those episodes already. I was like, I'm just going to let them play out and I'm going to stop
Mhm, mhm,
because, what is the point of this if God is going to let me suffer that much, let my family, let my mom suffer
yeah.
that much? What is the point?
Mhm,
And so then my brother I was talking with him, and he and my dad used to meet every Friday for prayer because my brother was off on Fridays. And I told my brother that. And he looked at me and he said, Carol, Dad prayed. Ever
mm,
since you said you were going to start this podcast, he prayed every Friday for this podcast. He prayed that it would reach people all over the world and that it would be encouragement and that it would help people. And
mm,
when he told me that, I was just like, okay, I can't.
yeah.
This is this is like a memorial to my father. This is like
Wow.
an honor of my father
Mhm,
that I kept going. And it was hard. It was so hard. And I had to work with my grief and anger, and I had
mhm,
to work through all that. And I still have to work through it. It's been almost
yeah.
5 years now. But I still know that God is good.
Yeah.
And we don't know why God took him when he did. He did have underlying health issues.
Mhm,
And so, you know, anyway, you just saw all these other people recovering and
yeah.
and he didn't. And so
Yeah.
I kept going. But so that was when I was 55 years old. And then so I turned 60 this year. That's like so hard to say. And that's when I started thinking, hey, when you get to be 60, that's when people really start thinking about retiring.
Mhm,
And I'm like, what? God, do you want me to keep doing this? And so that was about the time, last year I met you. I'm
mhm,
like, I don't know what I'm doing. At the end of 2024, you had mentioned you were going to start this Well Done Women community.
mhm,
And I can't remember when you opened it, but I joined as soon as you opened it. And I told God at the end of 2024, I'm like, this is it. This is my
mhm,
fifth year. I'm going into my fifth year. And, or I will have done it for 5 years at the end of 2025. And I said, I'm not going to keep doing this unless you give me some kind of like sign or progress or
mhm,
something to show me,
mhm,
some affirmation to show me that this is what you want me to keep doing.
mhm.
And he also gave me the verse. He gave me the word every year. I pray and I ask God to give me a word. Word for 2020 was joy, believe it or not. And I
Wow.
was angry about that word too. But the word he gave me for 2025 was perseverance. And I was like, God, please don't give me that word. I
Isn't
don't
it
want
so
that
cool
word.
though how God gives you the word that you need and not necessarily what you want?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Mhm,
exactly. And it's so funny because he keeps when he gives me this word, I know some people think that's kind of like woo woo, but I don't believe it is. I believe if we ask
mhm.
God that he tries
Yeah.
to
Mhm,
prepare our hearts, even though it may not be what the word that God gave me the year that my daughter had her first child was expectation, and he gave
wow.
her the same word too. And I was like,
Wow.
wow, that is just amazing. So I do
Yeah.
recommend you ask God at the end of every
Yeah.
year, what's my word for next year? But the verse that he gave me too was, do not grow weary in doing good because at the
Yeah.
proper time you'll reap a harvest if you do not give up. And it has
And
been a
I've heard
hard
you
year.
say that verse about a dozen times in
Yeah,
the last
yeah,
year.
because I'm like, okay, I'm
And
reminding
to keep
myself.
reminding yourself of it. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's not
Yeah,
easy. Something that,
it's not.
man, what you said, I relate to so much. And I think the listeners can relate to is that, like, God plants seeds. Like whenever your friend was like, you should write a book, like there's like seeds planted. And then
Mhm.
you kind of push back and you're like, no, like that doesn't make sense, or I can't, or, when would I have the time? And then you finally say, oh, you know what? Like I do want to do this, and
Mm.
the Lord can do it. And you start pursuing and working and going to the retreats and going to the conferences and saying yes and doing the work. And then something happens where you're like, I can't do this anymore. I surrender.
Mhm.
Like I give up. Like this is too much for me. And then you surrender. And then following that surrender, you think that things are going to you surrendered. So now you're being obedient, you're surrendered. You're like, Lord, here
Yeah.
it's yours, it's yours. And then you go through these series of tests and trials, and then you go through all of these emotions because things are dying, and like you can feel the Holy Spirit like working on you, like, and you're like,
Mhm.
I just want to do what
Yeah.
the Lord's called me to do. Meanwhile, you're getting beat up
Right, right.
through tests and trials. And through that, the Lord, through the perseverance, that's where like the pivots start coming through, you know, you're
Yeah.
working through the perseverance, and the Lord is like gently pivoting the ship that's in the water that you're on. Um, and that has happened to me. Oh my gosh, a dozen times in the last couple of years, where it's like, okay, the Lord, called me to move my family from
Yeah.
everything, to give up everything.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, maybe in a couple years, maybe when Bonnie graduates high school, maybe when it makes sense, we'll do that. And he's like, no, you're doing it now. We do it, and we see all the miracles. We do all the things that we know to do. We go, and then it's like silent. It's like the silent season where we're like, where are you, God? Did I hear you right? Like, where are you? And then like the
I know,
tests and
I
the
know.
trials,
The
and
doubt.
we're like, what am I even doing anymore? Um, but what I've seen in your story, I mean, he planted the seed, 20 years ago, and your faithfulness in it and his faithfulness in it, even through the diagnosis, which we know all about, getting diagnoses and diagnoses. What did I say that right?
Right.
Diagnoses. Um, and it just rocks your world.
Probably,
You
yeah.
who knows? You question, but through that, you're a different person. Like through
Mhm.
that, you have these testimonies now. Through that, you've seen God's goodness, his grace, his mercy, his miracles, and it changes you, and it equips you, and I mean, that's the goodness of God. And like, that's not
Yeah.
something anybody can write about unless you've been through it.
That's exactly right, and I think that's why God allows us to go through things because of and I can't remember, he tests you so that, when you come through that, then you can go and you can help somebody else go through that same
Mhm.
thing. And just like when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, when you're diagnosed with breast cancer, women come out of the woodwork to tell you
Mhm.
that, hey, I had breast, people you would never know. One lady, I was sitting at a wedding and she went to my church and she reached over and she tapped me on the shoulder and she was, I don't know, in her 70s maybe. And she's like, hey, I just heard you had breast cancer and I want you to know you're going to be okay because I
Oh,
had it 30 some odd years ago and I'm fine. You're going to be
yeah.
fine. And
Yeah.
I needed to hear that. And so
Yeah.
that's why I share that story because I want other women behind me to know
Yeah.
you're going to be okay.
Mhm.
And even when God like calls you out, just like, so when I was trying to do the, still draw house plans and try to do the podcast, so this was in March. I thought I was
Mhm.
going to lose my mind. Like I really thought I, I've never been that. And I've had businesses and I've owned my own business and stuff like that before, but
Mhm.
I've never felt so pulled and stretched like I was during that time. And I didn't know what to do. And I was asking God, Lord, do I keep doing this podcast? Like, I don't even
Mhm.
know if anybody cares that I'm doing this podcast. But
Mhm.
I do care about drawing house plans. And I looked at that job as a ministry because I freelance, I
Yeah.
did it on my home. And people can't afford to go to an architect because they
Mhm.
can't pay $20,000, to get a custom
Mhm.
plan. But so I was kind of that middleman. But I was at a Bible study one night and they were talking about balance, and I just lost it. And I just started sharing all this in front of them. And so my friend said, "Let's pray for you afterwards." And so
Mhm.
anyway, after that, a girl had walked in late and they started praying over me. And after it was over, she looked at me and she's like, "I don't know what this means, but God just said to tell you to let it go." And
Mm.
I was like, he meant my drawn house plans. And I cried and I mourned over that. And I
Yeah.
tried not to let it go. And people kept calling me and I would tell them no, but then they'd beg and beg and beg. And I remember the first time I said yes. And as soon as I hung up the phone, it was like God said, "You don't trust me, do you?" And so
Wow.
that was a harsh awakening. But I heard Emily Freeman say something. I don't know if it's her quote or not, but I heard it
Mhm.
during this time. And it really, I don't know, it gave me a different perspective. But she said, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're going to do it forever.
Mm.
And so how it was hard to give up, but I let it go. And I only do family and very, very, very close friends now. So, but one thing that I do want to say that as I was approaching 60, wondering if needed to retire, I heard about this study from the New England Journal of Medicine that shows that individuals between the ages of 60 and 70 are at their peak of productivity. 60 and
Wow.
70. So I'm 60 now. The second most productive time of a person's life is between 70 and 80,
What?
and the third most productive is between 50 and 60.
Wow.
So, do not give up. As you
No.
said, Brittany, we've only just begun. So,
Yes.
you can't give up. You
60,
cannot
you're in
give
your
up.
prime of
And
productivity.
I know. That's right. I just started my best decade for
My mama
productivity.
my mama needs to listen to this episode. We just celebrated her 66th birthday, and we've had several conversations of how she's like, I'm like, "So, like, what's next?" And she's like, "Brittany, I'm just trying to make it to Jesus." And so she needs to listen to
She's
this
only
episode.
66.
I know, I know. I'm gonna get her on this
Listen.
podcast eventually so we can
Okay.
go through this, but yeah, that's
I I just
insane.
want to say that one thing, 100 years ago, the average life expectancy was 47 to 48 years old. 100 years ago, I would be in the ground, you
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
already at this point because people had to work so hard. They didn't have good health care and all that.
Yeah.
We are the most educated, best health care that there has been in ever, ever. So
Mhm,
this can be
mhm.
the best time of your entire life. And
Yep.
there's so much. That's the thing, Brittany, when you were going to take me on as a client, you made me fill out this whole thing and you're like, "How did you get here?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I am 59 years old."
Tell me about your
Like
whole
I
life.
wrote pages and pages of my testimony.
Yep.
Yeah, cuz I was just like, I don't know. But the
That
thing
was the
is, the more
lengthiest
life you
application I
live, the
ever
more
received.
experience.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. But you said I'm one of the oldest, or maybe the
Oh,
oldest client that you have too.
I
So,
think so. Yeah. I think that's so
yeah.
encouraging
So,
too for the people, like my age. Like if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, like this is the time where it's okay to go slow. Like you're not behind. You don't have to
right.
hustle.
You got
Steward,
kids, a lot
we got
of them.
kids. We need but I'm telling you, the pressure's there. The pressure's there to figure out your thing
It
today.
is.
Figure out your thing. figure out
Mhm.
your brand, niche down. And it's like, but the Lord has
Right.
given me these babies to steward, this husband to pour into and
That's right.
support in his career and things, this home to take care of with the minions inside. And so I have
Mhm.
to check myself so many times. Like before we got on this podcast interview, Carol and I were talking, and she's like, "How are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh." And you said, she's like,
Long
"Well, that doesn't."
pause.
Long pause. Doesn't sound good. And it's like, well, I've been momming for so long because we're just getting out of summer and now we're entering this homeschool season. I've been momming so long. I don't even know what I'm doing right now.
Yeah,
And that's okay because I have time, and it's
that's
okay to
right. You
steward
do.
this season right now and learn and grow and get in the word and prepare my heart, my soul, my mind, my body for the plans that the Lord has. And some of it's going to happen sooner than later, but I would probably assume that a lot of it is going to be later.
Right.
And so that is so encouraging for me. And I'm praying that this is also encouraging the 50s, 60s, and 70-year-olds that are listening to this, but because like now is your prime. Like as far as
That's
doing the
that's
Lord's work,
right.
where like you don't have to slow down unless you feel the Lord calling you to. Like don't
Mhm.
let the enemy get into your mind and whisper the lies that you're done. You're not done until
Right.
you're dead. And even then, the
That's
Lord can still use your life testimony to bring glory
that's
to his
right.
name.
That is
And
exactly
so
right.
that's
So
why.
I want to read 2 verses. So the first one is Job 12:12. It says, "Is not wisdom found among the aged? Aged, does not life bring understanding?" How true is that?
Mm, mm-hmm,
And then the second one is Psalm 92:12 through 15. It says, "The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Planted in the house of the Lord, they will flourish in the courts of our God. They will still bear fruit in old age. They will stay fresh and green, proclaiming, 'The Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no wickedness in him.'" So we will still bear fruit in old age. I'm
mm-hmm,
looking forward to bearing a whole lot more fruit if God allows me to keep on living,
mm-hmm,
you know? And I saw this on a poster several years ago, and it really hit me between the eyes. It says, "Life should not be a journey to the grave with the intention of arriving safely in a pretty and well preserved body, but rather to skid in broadside in a cloud of smoke,
mm-hmm.
thoroughly used up, totally worn out, and loudly proclaiming, 'Wow, what a ride!'"
That is
And
so good.
that is my goal all the way to the end. I want to be
Mm,
used up, you know? I don't want to
yep,
be perfectly preserved when I get to heaven. I want God to say, "Girl, you worked hard. You
yep,
did good." Not to strive in vain,
mm-hmm,
but just to do what God is calling me to do, and for
mm-hmm,
each of us to do what God is calling us to do. We're us crazy girls.
mm-hmm. The Crazy Call Club. The Crazy Call Club. Uh,
That's right.
I just got a vision of like a softball team of girl players, and the good ones are black and blue and dirty because they're the ones who slid in the
Yeah.
home plate and did the thing, but the ones who are cleaned up, they were on the bench. And so like the good players, the players that the coach puts in the game by their black and blue and
Yeah.
dirty, they're worn out cleats. And so I love that. I love that so much. Okay,
Yeah.
as we wrap
It's a
up,
great, great quote.
I what's one last thing that like one last bit of encouragement you want to give someone listening who is in any part of their life, but the enemy is just whispering lies to them that they don't have, or they're too late, or they've missed the mark, or they missed the boat, or they missed the train, that their age, whether they're too old or too young to start doing the thing that they're called to do, like what's one last piece of encouragement that you can kind of leave us off with on this episode?
God has a plan and a purpose for every single person that is a Christian. He does.
Mhm.
And if you give up, you're going to lose the blessing. And yeah, you know, you are going to get beat up. I mean, you got to
Mhm.
be honest. If you're a
Mhm.
Christian, you're going to get beat up.
Mhm.
So something that somebody, if what I said scared you, because like the anything prayer, if that scared you, somebody said something sometime after I read that really stuck with me was, you know what? That was probably going to happen anyway.
Mhm.
And you had already surrendered to God at that
Yeah.
point, and you knew He was there to hold you. Even though you were angry and mad, it's not
Mhm.
like that wasn't going to happen if you hadn't surrendered to Him.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
probably still going to happen. My dad was probably still going to die. I was probably still going to have breast cancer.
Mhm.
But because I had surrendered to Him, that is one thing that when my dad died and we were going through all that as a family and at the funeral home and everything, and we looked at each other and we said, this is what it means when, the scripture that says God gives peace beyond
Mhm.
all understanding, that we couldn't understand why we felt the peace that we did,
Mhm.
but we did. And
Yeah.
God will give you what you need when you need it, but don't give up. If you give up, and that's my what I say at the end of every one of my episodes is don't give up, don't give in, keep building strong,
Wow.
because we've only just begun. God's got a lot of great work for us to do. And if you don't step out of your comfort zone, you are
Mhm.
going to miss so many blessings. You
Yeah.
really are.
Yeah. I
I'm
love that.
blessed because I got to meet you. I have so many more friends than I ever had before. And my life is so full. My family, I love my family and I spend a lot of time with my family. But
Mhm.
it's like my writer friend was saying, friends literally are like the flowers in our life that
Mm.
bring us so much joy and happiness. And so don't give up. God's got something amazing out there for you.
Yeah. And get out there and do the thing. Do the thing you're called to
That's
do.
right. That's right. Do
Trust
the
him with it.
thing. That's
Trust him with
right.
it. Okay,
Yep.
so Carol Roper, you have an amazing podcast. And you mentioned something earlier, and I'm like, that's why she's an expert interviewer because you love hearing people's stories and testimonies. Did you
Hmm.
have you put those two to two together? I don't know. But I'm like,
It's,
that's why she's so good at interviewing guests, is because she loves stories, which is why you're a good writer and a
I
speaker.
do love stories.
And okay, so
Well,
tell us, go ahead.
yeah, I don't read fiction. I can't read fiction. I only read nonfiction, and
You
I
want the
my
real stuff.
favorite movies are true stories
Yeah.
because
Same.
I want to see how God works in
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
that's me.
Okay. So tell us about where we can get connected with you, where the listeners can get connected with you, your podcast, what's next, what's coming, all the things with Carol Roper.
So, my podcast is Building Strong Homes Blueprints to Strengthen Your Faith and Family. And you can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts. My website, which is currently being redesigned and updated, which should be out shortly, but I
Mhm.
still have a podcast you can go to, is carolroper.org. Um, which I wanted carolroper.com, but some artist lady has that and she won't sell it. So, so it's carolroper.org. And yeah. And so I'm going to start mentoring. You have encouraged me to start mentoring. And so that's my next step. And you've encouraged me to do like solo episodes, which I
Mhm.
had only done a few before we started the coaching. And I have, I felt like that is what I needed to start doing. Like you said, to establish yourself as an authority, you have to have solo
Mhm.
episodes. And so I think it's a good mix having other
Yeah.
people's stories and then having just my crazy opinions. And I had asked you, like, I had had this thought about doing one solo about cursing, and you're like, absolutely, Carol, you need to do it and call it Should Christians Curse or some, I can't remember exactly what the
Yeah.
title, anyway, I titled it whatever you said. And I was like, people are going to think I'm crazy after I put it out, like what you said. And a friend like called me last week and she's like, I listened to that podcast and that was so good. And you had so many good scriptures to back it up. And I'm so glad I listened to that. And I was like, wow, okay, actually, somebody could benefit from that. So you never know who's listening and what they're getting from it because they usually don't
Exactly.
tell you.
Well, that's why, like, again, you gotta be in tune with the Holy Spirit and just do what he has to do
Yeah,
and trust him with the results. The results
yeah,
are on him. Just do what you're
right.
called to do. And if he puts a message on your heart, you got to get it out there.
That's right. You've got to. I mean, no, before I this is a whole different story. But anyway, I got up in front of a church unexpectedly at the end of a service and spoke one time. But it was like fire in my bone. I had never done
Hmm.
anything like that before. And I asked the preacher if I could have the microphone, and he hesitantly gave it to me. But it was like, it wasn't even like I was speaking. It was like I had to say it,
You
or I,
weren't.
right. I mean, I was this
Was it
crazy
you?
called lady.
Yep. Uh-huh.
So anyway,
I
I
love
still
that.
look back and think, God, what was that? But he'll do it, And the
Yep.
thing is, I'm so glad though that I didn't chicken out and go back to my seat and regret for the rest of my life that I
Yep.
didn't say the words that God put on my heart that day.
Yep.
So say it, say the thing that God is
Yep.
putting on your heart. And the thing is, he'll keep confirming it. You just ask
Hmm.
God, is this really what you, and he'll keep
Hmm.
confirming it. He
Yep.
doesn't leave you out there,
Hmm.
hanging in the wind. Now, after you do it, you
One of the
might
things I
be like,
love
what did I just
about,
do?
yeah, one of the things I love about the God we serve is that he is super consistent and very persistent. He's not going
Mm,
to give up on you,
he is.
even when you
Mm,
are nervous or scared or doubtful, or you question, like, is that really what he's asking me to do? Is that really, like, he's going to be persistent. And so that's the God we
mm-hmm.
serve, and he's so kind and he's so good. And that's what I hold on to anytime I hear the Lord speak. And then I'm like, oh no, are you sure you want me to homeschool? Uh, are you positive?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, really.
I really like my quiet time. But he will be
Yeah.
persistent. And so if you're out there listening and you feel the Lord calling you to do something or lay something down or let it go or start or stop, know that he will be persistent and consistent. But you have to tune in to his voice, lean into his word,
Mhm.
and then trust him with your actions.
Yeah,
So,
the hardest
yeah.
part.
All right, Carol, I love you so much. Y'all have
Mhm.
to go follow Building Strong Homes on podcast. Go to carolroper.org to work with her. If you are looking for a mentor to walk with you, Carol has almost 40 years of ministry experience. She has led retreats. She has spoken on stages. She is writing. She is blogging. She is doing the hard thing. And so, if you need someone to walk with you, to pour into you, to give you wisdom, to give you advice, to give you feedback, just a soundboard. I want to encourage you to reach out to Carol. She has spoken life into me so many times, and she would be an amazing mentor and leader for you and where you're walking in your life. And so, Carol, thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you. I love you, Brittany.